would like to have downloaded a copy of my story, but instead I'd like to just do it extemporaneously like I've been telling the story for the last 18 years. It's a story from when I was first in practice and I was recruited to Metro Health to be the director of OBGYN training for the family medicine residents and the director of family medicine training for the OB residents. And so this was a wonderful position because it was the best of all possible worlds in my view of the world. And so as I was a new faculty member trying to build a practice, I had one of my radiology colleagues approach me and she said, "Would you think about taking care of my dad? You know, he's an older man, he's so old, his internist is retiring and he has no one to take care of him. Could you see him?" "I'd be delighted," I said to her. And she said, "Well, delighted's probably not quite the right word, but you know, he probably will do fine with you." Great, I thought. On the morning of his appointment, he came hobbling in on his walker, an Ebenezer Scrooge sort of guy. And I could tell just by looking at him that he was really the shell of the person he once was. He had been a very powerful, successful businessman, a guy who had a rocky life but really worked hard and scratched his way to the top, and then had to retire when his chronic illnesses got the better of him. So he came into my office and he sat down and he said, "I think I'm in the wrong place here. That waiting room was full of a whole bunch of pregnant bellies and there were children running around all over the place out of control. And you are the doctor? I have shoes older than you." And that began our love affair. Our appointments often began with him complaining about the referral I forgot to place, or how the med refill from the last visit wasn't quite the way he wanted it to be, and "Oh, by the way, doctor, you're an hour and 15 minutes late this time. And those kids in the waiting room, they're so out of control, you have to do something about it." And so on it went for weeks and months as we started to develop a relationship together. One beautiful fall afternoon, I was called urgently to labor and delivery, something that happened with a bit of regularity in my new practice. And it was one of my patients that was there in preterm labor, trying to have a baby about 6 weeks earlier than she should have. And the strip looked bad, according to the labor nurse, which meant the baby could be in danger. And I thought a bit about it as I had a whole slate of afternoon patients. But this woman was a woman who was an illegal alien, as they term them. She got into the country illegally. She was from Nigeria. She was single and poor and alone in the world and about to have a premature infant. And so I knew she really needed me more by her side that afternoon than anybody else that was on my schedule. And so off to labor and delivery I went to be with her for her delivery, which ended up being this just amazing, beautiful experience. But who did I leave behind but Ebenezer in all of his angst of sitting in my waiting room. After the delivery, I went back to see if any patients were still there that I needed to see, and I was surprised to see that he had rescheduled. He was offered another more senior physician, and he chose to reschedule with me in a couple of weeks. So a couple of weeks later, there I am in the office seeing patients, one after the other, trying to catch up as more and more patients had been shoved into that schedule. And who comes hobbling through the door but Ebenezer himself? He held out his little arthritic finger and barked, "There she is! There's the woman that kept me waiting for hours last time, and then she never even made our appointment." And I heard this as I was coming out of the room with the Nigerian mother and her newborn. Breaking all HIPAA rules, I know. I said, "Guess what? You are an absolute luck. Here is the very reason why I wasn't with you last time. Here he is." and my Nigerian patient, who was dressed in all of her beautiful robes and had her son so beautifully swaddled, the whole 3.5 pounds of him that there was. Ebenezer took one look and came by and said, "Oh, might I hold your baby?" I was a little nervous, to say the least, since Ebenezer could hardly hold his own walker. But my Nigerian patient was so lovely, and she said, "Of course." And in that moment, here was my poor immigrant, who handed over the most precious thing in the world to her, to this retired, wealthy Ebenezer Scrooge, who in that moment of looking into those babies' eyes, melted into the most wonderful, loving teddy bear of a man. And I thought, this is why I'm a family doctor, and this is why I'm in this setting, to have these sorts of interactions with my patients. And Ebenezer never again complained about the children or the pregnant bellies in the waiting room. Thank you.